Hi everyone! So this is going to be a video talking about variables and how we can add them to our environment and what it is and how it goes. So I'm just going to pop over here to this. So you can see, so what is a variable? A variable is basically, like this says, a placeholder to store a value that you can change over time. And what I mean by that, right, is that the idea here is we're going to create a collectible game where you go and you collect items that are around your thing, and when you get the certain amount of items, then it's going to have some kind of logic to finish the game, right? We had the previous one where we collected the flag and then we won. So this one we're going to have it be like you collect the different variables and or the different objects around. So there'll be more than one thing that you have to collect. Now, to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to, we need to store that variable someplace. And an easy way to do that in this game that we're going to be making is putting it in the third person character that we created. So we're going to go back to Unreal, and we're going to open the content drawer. Remember, there's multiple ways. You could either hit Control and space to open it, or just down here in the bottom left-hand corner, I could click that and open it, and you'll see that we have the folder with the third person. If we double click on that, we go to blueprints, we have our third person, we're going to double click on that, and it opens up the third person. Now, we talked about this last week, but we have here on the right hand side the details where anything that we select, it will give us more details about it. We started off, we're currently in the view of the event graph, so right, that's saying that we can see the different blueprints that we've used, right? So that's where we are. If we switch over to the viewport, we're going to see the character model. And so this is the character that we have that we're using. And then on the left-hand side, we have some information about the different stuff in there. So you'll see down here where it says My Blueprints, there's different parts of this. And you'll see like it has some of the different things that we've done. So you can see here like how it jumps, how it moves, how it looks and changes, right? So if we double click on these, it's going to bring us to that code, right? This is the blueprint codes. It'll bring us right to it. And if you look underneath, there's a couple more things. There's functions, right? Functions are basically just little programs that, like we've said, like, right, this is a function that is a built-in function about like jump and stop jumping. And so we could make our own functions and have it in here that would override some of that. And then macros are basically like functions. There's just little tiny scripts that will run. And then down here at the bottom it says variables. So that's what we're going to change right now is variables. You can see it already has a couple for the camera following. We want to make our own. So what we're going to do is hit this little plus button here, and it's going to give us a new variable, and you'll see it has a place for its name. And so I'm just going to call this like collectible count, and you'll see it starts off with a boolean here, and boolean, right, is just either true or false. It's either on or off. It's not really going to help us with counting, so what we want to do is select that and get all these different other options that we can have as a variable. And so so basically this is what a variable is. It's saying go take this section of memory and we're going to store information in that section of memory. And so here what I'm going to do is pick one of these types. So you could have different types where it'll store different types of data in that section of memory. And you can kind of go through and see like what kind of data do we want. And we're not necessarily going to be storing a string for this. What we're going to want is to store an integer, right? We're going to have a count of how many items that we're going to collect. And so we wanted to have that. And so an integer basically is just a whole number. So, you know, it can be positive or negative. You could have -5 as an integer, 0 is an integer, 155 is an integer. So you could just see that. And when you see that I have this selected on the right hand side over here, on the right hand side, so I have it selected on the left. On the right hand side, you can see it brought up information about that integer that I have created. And you can get different information. One of the other things I want to remind you guys, right up here, it says compile. Like, it's not letting me do some of the information here because I haven't compiled it yet. So I'm going to hit compile. And now over here on the right hand side, you're going to see at the bottom it says default value. And that's good because it's currently set as 0. And that's what we want, right? Because they've not currently collected anything. So we want it to be set to 0. And so basically that was it. That you could easily create a lot of variables in here. And that is the variable I created, was just one for collect count. And we defaulted to 0. There's some other things that you can do to it. You could, change, like here, you could change the type. You can make it a container and stuff. You can change the name. You can make it read only. None of this we're going to need to bother with because the only thing we want right now is we're just going to add a counter for it and collecting it. So now that we have the variable that we actually are going to be using to count how many items we actually have to create the item that we're going to count. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our content drawer, and we are in our folder with our name. I'm going to create a new blueprint class of actor. So this is basically the exact same thing we did when we made the flag. And I'm just going to call it BP collect. All right, so that's the item I'm going to collect. And I'm going to double click it to edit it. And I'm going to do little different things just so that you can see something else we could do. Instead of adding a cube or anything like that, what we're going to do is I'm going to add a plane. And I will probably just rotate it just so that it's 90 degrees, just so it's facing up and down. You notice I had it slightly off over here, so I'm going to change it to 90 just so that I know it's perfectly at 90. And then I'm also going to add another thing here. One of the components that you could add that is kind of fun is rotating. And it just means that my object's going to start moving instead of just being static in one place. And, it's always fun to test these things out. So we saved it or we've compiled it and we saved it. And now I'm just going to go back here to my display and I'm going to add my item here. And I'm going to pull it up. And we can hit play. And so now you can see that my little rectangle plane thing is being displayed. You'll notice I only have it one-sided, so it kind of disappears when it's facing me or facing away from me. So we'll fix that. But just to show that this is there and I can run into it maybe, right, when it's visible. So now what we want to do is we want to add some other stuff so we need it to count. And what we're going to do is we need to add a collision. So we're going to add collision. And we'll do the same, this time we'll do a sphere collision. And it's going to act exactly the same way as a box collision. It's just instead of being square, it's going to be around, so we'll just make it a little bit bigger, right? Switch it to the scale and increase the size. I'm increasing the wrong thing, so we want the sphere. So you can see our sphere is bigger now, so now when we run into this, we can have that, and then we can do the same thing we did before, right? As we scroll down, we're on that, and we can say a component begins to overlap. So we're going to basically do the exact same thing we did last week, right? We're going to cast this onto to the third person. I don't know why it went away. We'll try that again. Cast to third person character. Right? And then this is the other actor, and so it's the object that we're passing. Other object to that. And now what we want to do is, update the variable that we collected, right, in the third person, that we created in the third person. And so if we go over and look at that, right, it's called collect count over here, and that's what we want to update. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for collect count. So this is why I like having things named specific ways, that you know what the names are going to be so that you can easily find them. And so you can see here, I'm going to set our collect count to this. And I want to initially get the collect count, so get collect count. So I'm going to get the value of collect count over here. And this is where I'm going to set it. So I need the value to start with, right? So that I know what value I have stored in my collect count. And then I'm going to need to set it up here. And to do that, I'm going to need to add to it. So I'm going to click add. Right, select add. And you see there's multiple options here. And this is the one that we're going to want. We want to go to old math nodes. And so, right, so we have the value from the collect count that we're bringing in that we got from the character. So, right, and we're going to add 1 to it. And we're going to then put that value, right? So the left is where we're getting data. So we get the value of what's in collect count. We're adding 1 to it, and we're taking that value and we're depositing it into the get count, or the collect count. And so now that we have it there, right, we need to actually see if we're actually updating it. So what we're going to do is pull out from the set, and we're going to print it. And so we're going to print string, and I don't want to necessarily just print hello or my own words, right? I want to set what the value of collect count is. So that's where this is outputting, right? And so I'm going to click and drag that over to the in string section. And you'll notice that Unreal was nice and it created a new little bubble for me, right? So this is a new blueprint, and what it's doing is on the right hand side, it's having the integer that I'm outputting from here, right? That's an integer, and I want to output it as a string. So this little box is going to convert my integer from an int to a string and output it here. And so I'm going to increase this to 5 just so it doesn't disappear right away. So 5. And here we'll make the color, we'll make it red. Maybe. Did I not hit? I think there's an OK. No. Alright, so now just to change up the colors and stuff. So now we can hit compile. Oops, something went wrong. I need to have, I think, it'll tell me what went wrong. I must have a target collected, so that was my problem. So I need to have both. This third person needs to go to both. This is where I'm getting the data, and this is where I'm setting the data. Look at that. Much happier now. And now we're going to come back and hit play. And did I update that? Let's see if I updated it. So you'll notice it hit 1 there, and if I hit it again, now it's to 2, 3. So that's kind of nice, right? So now I'm updating my count every time I go and hit this one item. Now that's not really a collection thing, right? So, because if we're actually collecting it, that means it needs to disappear, right? So what we're going to have it do is we're going to destroy an actor, and we are going to have it destroy itself. And so basically this, what should happen is now when I go, I'm going to hit compile and save everything. And when I come back in here, and I play again, and I go and collect this, you'll notice it disappeared and it went to 1. So what we need now to see if it actually is working is we need to duplicate this. And so what I'm going to do is I have one here, and I'm going to hold the Alt key and click and drag this places, and you'll notice I now have 2 of these circle things there. And then I'm going to let go of the Alt key, and I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to let go of the Alt key, and I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to let go of the Alt key, and I'm going to do it again. So it's an easy way to make duplicates is just holding down the Alt key, and you'll notice on the right hand side I have collect 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now I have my 5 items. And so now if I hit play, I have all of these rotating things, and I could come and start collecting them and they'll disappear. And you can see I'm up to 3, 4, and 5 on the right side. So now I've collected my items, right? And that shows that. So now the only problem, like, right, my items are a little drab, so I might want to add a picture to them. Right? So what I'm going to do is go, and you'll notice I have this here, and I want to add a picture to my collection. Right? So if I go back to this and I go to the viewport, it's currently just this white block. And I told you that I would make it so that it's double-sided. And so what I want to do is click on plane. And if we wanted to, we could just add a color, right? If I wanted to go back to the blue, I know that we have that blue here. And you'll notice it's still not the same, right? It's still only one-sided. But now if I play, right, this is one of those things that's nice about the way we did this was we only had to make the change once and it applied to all the items, which is kind of fun. So I want to make my own. And so what I've done is I've saved I've gone out on the internet and found the star. I want to make the star being the thing that I collect around the different worlds. And so there's multiple ways that you can do this. You can be in Unreal, and you could say, you could have it go find the item and have it add to it. The easiest way is I have my file here, and I'm going to open the folder, right, my content browser, and I'm just going to click and drag this in here. And you'll see that Unreal automatically converts my image to a texture. Now, from the way Unreal works is it uses materials. It has its own thing that it calls them, and it calls them materials. And also, one thing I want to mention here is that this is a JPEG, and like a JPEG does not have any transparency. So when I do this and use it, what I'm going to first need to do is convert the material to, or create a material from it. So I can just take a texture, right click it, and the top thing on this is create a material from it. And so you'll see that it created an images underscore mat. And so I'm going to double click on it. You'll see I have some options here. These are the different colors that are in the scheme. You can change different aspects of this. The things that, just to show what I liked doing with this, is one of this is make it two-sided because, right, the image currently was just single-sided. So now if I hit, I have to go and save everything, right? Save selected. And I need to add this image to my, to this. So, right, I think it's just called image, mat. And now if I hit compile and I hit play, you'll see now I have the star there. It isn't still showing as double-sided, and that's because I still have my thing up. So if I close it out and it saves everything, And now you can see the image is showing up on both sides, right? And so it's kind of better. Now it has all this white space around it. What I will tell you about that is that it is the transparency, and by default, Windows doesn't have a software, a photo editor that will deal with transparencies. The one I like using is called paint.net. So this is the one I like using. So if I just do, I don't know where it gives me the information about it. But paint.net is what I like using for my photo editing when I want to do it, because it's free. When I worked at Lockheed, it was like what they offered as it. So what we're going to do is just going to go in Unreal. I made it in assets and images. So this is my image. So if you come in here and you don't have the ability, like you can see, like it has a solid white background, what I'm going to do is select the background and I'm going to hit delete. Now it has that checkerboard background, and I'm going to save it specifically as a PNG. And so when I hit save now, and you'll see that it still has the checkered background, I hit OK, it's saving it as a PNG, and so PNGs have transparencies that they will have with it. And so now I can minimize this, and go back to my image here, and so now it should have 2. So now I'm going to come in here, let's go to that, get back into this, and do kind of a similar thing, right? And you'll see how this one's different. It updated it to the PNG, so it has the black background, and now when I hit play, it has the black background, because there's one more editing thing I need to do. So I'll stop. We'll come back in here. We'll edit this. And what I need to do now is I need to mask it. So blend mode. If we switch this over to masked, and I'm going to zoom in here, I get a new option here, which is opacity mode, or opacity mask. And so these are the different color channels. So like, right, if I wanted to do certain things with them, like I can just do the red channel, the green channel, the blue channel, or the alpha channel. And what the alpha channel is the transparent channel. So I'm going to click and drag this over opacity mode, and you'll notice that it made parts of the things disappear. Now, if things don't disappear, that means that you don't really have an opacity mode or an alpha mode set. If you do find PNGs on the internet, they could have what looks like a transparent background, but they don't really have a transparent background. It's like the image looks like the same checkerboard image. And so it's not required to have this. This is not you'll get a bad grade because you don't have it, but again, this class isn't necessarily about a lot of image manipulations. It's what you feel comfortable with. But what I just like to show here is, right, this is what it looks like when you have it set to masked, and you can have it be transparent, and you get to see both sides. So now when I come back here, and let's get out of this. So it's going to say, do you want to force the materials to be updated? And we hit yes. And now when we come back here and we hit play, now you can see I have my pretty stars that are just here, and I can come and collect them, right? And you can see that I have my thing set at 5. So now I've gotten like my items that I've made. I might want to make this one not be completely in the ground. Right. And now I want to have like we have the pop-up window, right, of we win if we go and collect the flag, right? So now I want a display that is prettier than just the display that I have of like how many counts I have. I want it to be a display that shows on the screen when the user is playing, right? And so that it's easier to read and bigger and everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new widget that's a user interface widget. So we're going to click on our content drawer. We're back in our thing. We have our win widget from last week. What we want to do now is create a new widget. So I'll scroll down here to user interface, and we're going to create a new widget blueprint. User widget. So this one we're going to name, right, UI widget, because it's going to be kind of the widget that is displayed above the user as they're going around and playing, right? It's going to stay up on their screen. And so what we're going to do is edit it. We have our thing basically just like we did our last one. We're going to add a canvas. And now we want to add where we're going to be displaying the count of how many items we have. And so in this case, right, I'm going to want to add the image, right? So I'm going to put an image here. And again, I'm going to, we can come over here to that image. So we're going to come down here to image, and we're going to go find our image that we did, and I'm just using the texture for the image just so I can see my pretty star here. And then I also want to add text, right? And we're going to put that over here. And this is going to be where we show how many, right, of the count we have. And so I just want to change the appearance of it. So I'm going to increase the size, right? Font size. And the value I have here, right, is not going to be text block. This is going to be like 5 is the max, right? So we could just do that so that we could see what it's going to look like, and we could make that 5 a little bigger. And we can change the color so that it kind of goes along with it. So now we have our color and our display. And that's great and all, but you know, this is just going to show 5, and it's not going to have it updated when it changes. So what we want to do is we're going to take this and we're going to actually bind it to our variable that we have. So to do this, what we need to do, we have our variable, we have our image, we need to make sure you have selected the value of where the item is going to be, right? And we're going to, so you can see here it's 5, so we're going to click on, it kind of looks like a little paper clip maybe. We're going to click on that, and we're going to say create a binding. And so this basically creates a new function on the widget blueprint that will return the binding data for this property. And so what that means is it brings us over here into getting the text. Now we need the variable that we had created for the third person character, but we need it in this little object that we're currently on, right? We're currently on the UI widget, and we need to add the third person information into this. So what we're going to do is click over on event graph, and you'll see we have a couple things that are already here, and we're going to click on this event construct. That's basically when this UI is created, it's going to click on this, or it's going to execute this section of code. So what we need to do is cast this to the third person, right? So that we can get information about that third person character that we created and get the value for it, right? And what we want to do is we're going to right click on as BP third person, and we're going to say promote this to a variable. And what this is going to do, right, just like we did before where we created our own variable, now we let the system create a variable for us of this BP third person. And we could leave it set this, or if we wanted to, right? There we go. I have that selected again, right? This is the variable name. That's kind of a hard variable name to find. So if we want, we can just say like player reference. And so now this is called player reference. And so that we can easily get this. Now this is a variable that it should be findable. So right, we're not happy. Why are we not happy? Oh, because there's another thing I'm missing. So I'm going to, from the object, I'm going to also need to get that player character. So we're going to say get player character. And so, right, this is getting the player that we're executing, right? So that is the third person that we're playing in the game, and we're going to just have a reference to that player, so that way we can get the information of the count to our widget. So now we're gonna, because we're in our widget, so now we're gonna go back to the get text, and now in here what we can do is we're going to have this variable that we have on player third reference, and we can just drag it out, and it's going to ask us, do we want to get the player reference or set the player reference? We're not going to be updating the player reference, so that's why we're going to just get. And so we're going to get information about the player, and what we want is, right, is we want the collect count. So we're going to get the collect count, and then we're going to put this on the screen. Now if I just tried to click it here, you'll see what it did is it had to do the same thing like we did earlier, which is convert the text to, or the integer, right? So this is an integer. It needs to have it and then output it as an actual string, so that it's changing that value from a integer to a string, because we could, and we hit compile, and we're also going to hit save. And now we're going to go back to the, so we've created our widget. We've updated the value on our widget, right? So if we go back to the designer mode, so right, so we're on graph here, right? So the widgets are slightly different than the other viewports that we're in, where you had the little button that said viewport. Now we have designer and graph. And so we go back here, and now this one should be, right, it's get text here, and so that it is going out and collecting that text. So now we've created our widget, we are updating our widget, and now we need to actually display our widget. So just like we did last week with the you win, we're going to do it, but this is going to be slightly different, right? Because we're just wanting this display to be up all the time, right? This is just the UI. So we're going to go back to the third person character, right? And basically we want it for this character anytime from the beginning of the play to the whole entire time. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to add an event. So you could look for event, begin, play, and that's what we want, right? So we'll zoom in, and just like we did last week, we're going to create the widget, And we're going to create the widget for, and it's the UI widget. And then once you create it, then you have to actually add it to the view. So we're going to say add to viewport. And we need to connect it so that it has a value that it's returning. And we're going to hit compile, see if it compiled, and it did. And we'll save all. And so now we can test it. So we're going to go to third person and hit play. All right, we can test it to make sure it works. So look, nice that it's updating all of our things as we get the stars. And you notice last week we did the thing where we had the flag set, so we could go check to see if that still works. I have a problem with jumping games, so I'll come back here and see if we can. Go over here and hit the flag and just make sure that it still indicates like, yay, you won because we touched the flag. Now we might want to add a little bit of things, right? Because you could just bypass collecting the stars and just come and hit the flag and you'd win. So you might want to update the win parameters, right? So that you have to collect the stars and hit the flag. So what we're going to do, right, is we'll go and find out where we did the collection with the flags, right? So that is on the, if we go back to this, right, this is where we have the logic for the flags, right? So this is saying that if we touch the flag that we automatically win, right? We add it to the viewport. So we might want to add logic here that says we'll do this if the counter is at 5, right? Because we know we have 5 flags or 5 stars, and so if we have all 5 stars, then we can do this. So what we'd want to do is we already have the third person here, right? So we want to get the collect count. Maybe it's just collect count. So it's set collect count, and we don't want to set it, we want to get it. So I think maybe from here, get collect count. And what we want to do is we want to check. We want to do an if statement. And what an if statement is, it's a logic statement that is going to check to see if something is true or not. And if it's true, it's going to do one thing. And if it's false, it's going to do something else. How it's written in Unreal is it's called a branch. So it's a flow control. It's going to be a white item, right? So like the green and the blue are functions, the red is events, and the white are logic. So this is a logic statement. So basically what we're going to do is we wanted to get the collect item that we had here, right? And we're getting a branch. And so we're going to have this, instead of going directly to the widget, we're going to come in here into the branch. And we're going to have some kind of condition. So here what we're going to do is say, right, we need to add a logic statement here of checking what the value of this is. So we're going to come from here and we're going to say equals, right? And we'll have this be one of the inputs. And the other one is going to be 5, right? We know we have 5 things. So if the collect count equals 5, then that's true. And we touch the flag, we're going to come down here and do this. And then if it's false, what we'll just do is do a print string, and say you need stars. And I have a feeling that my compile is not going to work because I believe this has to go down here to this. Maybe not. Let's see. Let's compile and see. Hey, look at that. It's happy, just the way it is. So what we did, right, was we had the third person. We got the collect count from that. We're checking to see if it equals 5. And if it equals 5, then we're going to do the true statement here, which creates the widget. And if it's false, we're just going to print to the screen that says you need stars. So we're going to come in here and test this. And so we're going to hit play, and I'm just going to go try to, here, I'll collect 1 star. And then I'm going to go over and try to get onto my flag. And I will tell you that, you know, sometimes it's easier to put things down easier that you can check them. But like, so you can see on the far left, it says you need stars, right? So this is not letting me win here. And so we could come and collect more stars. Now I have my 5 stars. Now we can come back over here. What I was trying to get at was like, if you don't want to have to keep running and doing this while you're testing to see if your logic works, then you can do other things. So now, like, right, it says you win because I have all 5 stars and I hit the win condition. So that's a way to put logic in here of like checking what values I had and saying that I had all 5 stars, and then I put this here. When you're actually creating your game here, a couple things I want to note is please do not just do like what I did this here for testing purposes and for starting the purposes, right? Like, or for like getting everything going. But would not leave all of my items out here like this, right? You'd want to move them into various locations, like, right, I can hide it, you know, I can make some kind of, right, the idea is we're making a game, and you want to actually put your items where you can see them around the variety of your space, right? I'm going to move this up here. And again, F is a great thing to make it be focused, because right, it's out in the middle of nowhere. I want it to actually be on here. Now I can see that it's a little better. Right, so this, my point is, place your items around the area. Don't have them all in one spot. Have your flag be someplace that goes and collects. And so that way it's an actual game that you're playing. And then when you go to like take a screenshot, you could do it this way if you want, or you can take individual screenshots of each different item, right? Like saying that this one's here, and so that I can take a screenshot of it. You know, the ones over here, right? Just having them in different locations. Like, ooh, this one probably would be hard to get, huh? And so that's what kind of makes it more of a game, is not having them, you don't want them all like in the same exact spot. If that makes sense. All right. And just like week 1, where you're going to take screenshots of everything, my main thing is just take a screenshot of the intent of what the problem is, and that you get that and show it in the screenshot, and you paste it into Word, you make a PDF, you upload that. I hope that's clear as mud, and don't hesitate to ask questions.